Hi, Book and Wax friends. I'm Amber. Welcome to my channel and to my most disappointing books of 2024. These are the books that maybe were hyped before even going into them, and they ended up not being that good in my opinion, or they're just ones that I hadn't even heard much talk about in the booktube community, but I read it and it just wasn't for me. So this, of course, is always a matter of opinion. So if you do see a book that is something that's like your all-time favorite book, more power to you. This is just things that just didn't hit me right, and it doesn't mean that the book won't be good for you. So I'm going from my most least favorite, how do I word that? The one that is the least favorite of this list, and work my way up to the number one spot of my least favorite of the whole year. So, and it looks like I have something, sorry guys, I'll probably edit this out, but it looks almost like I have some sort of like black spot on my, doesn't it? I'll be right back. Well, I must be hallucinating because I wiped it off and there's nothing there. Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that little diversion. Okay, so this does not include DNFs because I feel like it's not fair to rank them when I haven't read the whole story. So there are books that I've DNF'd for one reason or another, content, or I'm just not feeling it in one way or another. Didn't like it at all to really continue. So those aren't included. So these are the ones that I have read fully. So let's jump into it. So I'll say honorable mention. Well, it doesn't matter. It's my least favorite, the least disappointing from the disappointing list. And it did get a 3-star. This is my only 3-star on the list. And I do have it because my other 3 stars I didn't put on this list. I put this one because it had been so hyped a few years back when it first came out, and I still hear things about it all the time. It had been so hyped that I was really like, oh, this is going to be magical and whimsical and just right up my alley. And it ended up being fine, a 3-star for me. And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Again, 3-star. It wasn't anything that was terrible by any means, but it didn't give me what I thought it was going to give me as far as my expectations, because they were a little higher than they probably should have been, I guess. But when you hear so much about a book, it's easy to have high expectations about it. So The Night Circus is about this whimsical world. It takes place in the real world, so it's like historical fantasy, magical realism, about these two magicians that are kind of pitted against each other, not because they want to be, but their guardians, so to speak, pit them against each other in this contest. And at first they don't know anything about who the other person is that they're competing against, and they don't know why or how or what's going to happen, how they decide who the winner is. So they end up creating this night circus with some other people. That's like this magical circus that just appears out of nowhere in different towns. And there's a contest, so to speak, to create the most magical, jaw-dropping type of rooms in this maze of a circus. And it just didn't hit me right for some reason. The character development for me wasn't there. I didn't connect to the characters all that well. And then it was kind of a dual timeline story in that there was a side plot as well, but that plot did end up wrapping up into the main plot too. And I did enjoy the way it ended. I was hoping for 5 stars because I love the whimsical and magical type of fantasy story, and it just didn't give that for me, unfortunately. But still a 3 stars. But if we're talking about disappointing reads, that one is just because my expectations had been so high. Okay, the second one, so number 10 out of my 11 is Library of Shadows, which I just read last month, actually. And this is by Rachel Moore. I think I ended up giving it a 2.5 stars. And it was one that some of the plot didn't make a lot of sense, like in regards to the ghosts that are there. So it's about a girl that goes to a school, this prestigious school. She gets a scholarship for it. Her dad had at one point in time gone to that school as well, but he left it for some reason. And so she's trying to figure out the mystery of what happened when her dad was there. And she ends up running into ghosts, which you find out pretty much at the beginning of the story. So it's not a spoiler or anything. And the mystery behind what's going on in this library felt like it shouldn't have been a mystery, because one of the ghosts has been there since the beginning of what the curse has been happening. He's been there, and the thing that ends up happening with the curse, it's like one of those things, well, couldn't you have told the main character, Estee, about it? If you knew about it, why didn't you tell her about it? Again, I don't want to give spoilers. Or if you didn't know, why didn't you know? I can't really say anymore. And then there was like kind of an instant love element of it too, that I just didn't hit me right. So that got a 2.5 for me. Okay, the number 9 spot goes to Air Awakens, and this is by Elise Kova. And this is also kind of about libraries. It's about a girl that's a library apprentice, and she ends up finding out that she has magic, and magicians are kind of like feared, even though they are there at this library academy, whatever place. I don't even remember now. Whatever place she's at, they are also there too, in their own kind of like exclusive school, if I'm remembering right, is what it is. But they're kind of feared at the same time and looked down on a little bit, even though it's not like unsanctioned to be a magician. And she ends up finding out that she does have magic, and then she ends up kind of being trained, even though she doesn't at first believe that she has magic, and it's not like coming out for her type of thing. And the plot just wasn't there for me. I felt the world building wasn't the best. The character building as well wasn't the best. And I just didn't really believe the relationship between the main character and the love interest, so to speak. So that one got a 2-star for me. Okay, then the number 8 spot goes to Love at First Sight, which is a romance by Jen McKinley. And this one was very much a disappointment for me, because it was one that I had high hopes for when I read the premise. It's about this librarian. All these books seem to have a theme. I wonder why. About this librarian who works, I think, in New York City. She ends up getting hired by her favorite childhood author who hadn't written a book in quite a while. She gets hired as her assistant, and so she moves to Ireland to help the author, Siobhan. I can't remember what her last name was. And also, along with helping the author, when she isn't helping her, she works in the author's son's bookstore to help him. And it's that grumpy sunshine type of thing. But I never really liked the male main character really at all. He never got over that grumpy quality for me in any way that I felt like that was lovable or anything. I did enjoy the relationship between Siobhan and the female main character, which I can't remember her name now. I think it was M, short for Emily, if I'm remembering right. And I love the setting because it did take place in this quaint village in Ireland. So I did love that as well. But when it's supposed to be a romance and you aren't a fan of half of the romantic couple, it just doesn't work out. So that one was disappointing for me. Then number 6, the number 7th spot goes to Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. And this one, I wanted to really like it. And I know it's a classic, especially because it's a classic. I read it during Summerween, like in July, I think it was. And I was terrified about when the Disney version of the story came out when I was a kid, or at least when I watched it as a kid. I can't remember when it came out exactly. I think in the 80s. I was terrified of that movie. It was like one of the scariest Disney movies ever, in my opinion, although it's been a minute since I've watched the movie even. When I was reading the book, it did not hit the same way. But again, I'm older, so I had to take that into account too. But for me, Ray Bradbury, who I have enjoyed other books by him, he was very verbose in a way that did not contribute to the story, in my opinion. Overly descriptive in things that did not need to be described, that did not progress the story along for me. So for that reason, I didn't enjoy it all that much. It made the story drag on instead of keeping me like at the edge of my seat about what was happening. Which I didn't say anything about what was happening. So it's like an evil carnival comes to town around the time of Halloween, and it's about all those things that happen because of that. But most people don't realize that it's evil. But these two boys that are best friends come to realize that there are nefarious things happening. And yeah, so that is my number 7 pick. Okay. Then number 6 is also a classic. I always feel bad putting classics on the list, but it is what it is. There are classics I do enjoy too. As you can see, Little Women's right there, one of my all-time favorites. But we're talking about most disappointing, and I have to be honest. So number 6 is White Nights, which is a short story by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I can never say his name, but you know who that is. He's a Russian author back in the day. So this is a short story about a man. He is just called the Dreamer, is all you kind of know him by. And he's very lonely, very reclusive, very introverted. And during a time of the year when most people are away from the city, I can't remember where he lived, a city in Russia, not Moscow though, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. He ends up during the nighttime hours, which is why it's called White Nights. It takes place during the summer where things are still pretty bright out there during the summer. He ends up like wandering around in the city because there aren't a lot of people that are there because they're all on vacation in other places. And he ends up running into this girl who he ends up forming a friendship with, and he ends up falling in love with her, and he's hopeful that she loves him as well. And the story evolves from there. It takes place only over just a few nights, or it might have been longer, but the nights that they met up anyway, it was only a few nights from what I remember. And I don't know if it was a kind of lost in translation type of thing for me, because like I said, it was originally published in Russian, so it has been translated, but I just didn't connect to the characters again, and the prose in it was very like abrupt, and it just didn't do anything for me except for make me depressed at the end of the story. And I like to end my stories usually in a positive way. I like stories with happily ever afters, or at least, you know, some sort of like conclusion, a good conclusion. And that one it just left me depressed. I just felt really bad for the character. And so that one is why it got the number 6 spot on my most disappointing books of 2024. Number 5 goes to The Shadows Between Us. This is by Scarlett St. Clair. And this is supposed to be like it's a fantasy book, and it's supposed to be, why am I blanking? Slytherin. It's kind of like a Slytherin romance type of thing, or if the main character were supposedly in Slytherin, or actually pretty much both main characters, and how that would work out type of thing, to where you were still rooting for the characters. And so it's about a girl who wants to marry the king, I think Shadow King was what he was called, or something like that. But she wants to marry him so she can gain power and then kill him and rule all on her own. And so she ends up, you know, getting his attention in different ways, and the story proceeds from there. It was okay. I thought I would enjoy it. I didn't like the main character, really. I didn't hate her or anything like that, but she was petty and small-minded, I felt like, and the romance in it felt rushed, in my opinion. And I know the second book, which is about the main character's sister, just came out this year. I'm kind of tempted to read it, but I don't know. I'm not willing to not say I wouldn't read another book by Tricia Levenseller, because I know she does have other books as well that I've heard are really good, but this one just didn't hit me right. So it got the number 5 spot. Okay, number 4. Oh, wait, no. That was that was number 5. Sorry. Number 4. Did I? I didn't. So I just realized at the beginning of number 5, which is The Shadows Between Us, hopefully I said that at the beginning. That's by Tricia Levenseller. Number 4 is Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. I got them mixed up. So, Touch of Darkness is a retelling of the Hades and Persephone story. It takes place in more like a modern times. And it was very much more content than I like. I'm more closed door when it comes to romance rather than seeing it all. That's not my thing. And so that was a big part of why I didn't really like it, why it was a disappointment for me. But the other thing in regards to it too, that I don't know, it just bugs me, and I'm not sure why. In my fae type of fairy fantasy stories, I don't like antlers, and all of them had like horns and antlers. I don't know why. That bugs me. It's hard for me to get behind it in like the Hades character has these big old antler horn things, and they can get rid of them. They can like disguise them or whatever. It's when they're in their true god form that you can kind of see them. but just to know they're there, it's hard for me to find appeal in the character to find that appealing. Like, I don't have a problem necessarily with like wings, that sort of thing, when it comes to fantasy characters. But like I said, for some reason, horns, antlers, that sort of thing, that just doesn't appeal to me. It sounds dumb, but that's my personal preference. So that's another reason why I just wasn't a huge fan of that story. And I won't continue the series. It's like a huge, long series, and it has Persephone's point of view and it has Hades' point of view. There are books out in both of those. And yeah, it was mainly just too graphic for me. So, okay. Number 3 goes, and I actually have the last 3 books here with me. Number 3 goes to Love Finds You in Prince Edward Island, Canada. This is by Susan Page Davis. And this is a super old school book. Let's see when this came out. She wrote all these different ones back in the day. I don't even see. Oh, 2011. That actually wasn't that long ago. It feels like it was older. Anyway, she has all these different country places where it's like Love Finds You in, wherever else. Vancouver, Washington, St. Louis, Missouri, all different places. So this is Love Finds You in Prince Edward Island, Canada. My husband actually bought this for me. My sweet husband, I love him to death. He got me books for my birthday, this past birthday, and this was one of them because he saw Prince Edward Island. I'm a huge fan of Anne of Green Gables, her series, and those, of course, take place on Prince Edward Island, and I've always wanted to go since then, since I was a kid and first fell in love with those books. And so he saw Prince Edward Island on this and was like, oh, I'll get that for her, along with the other books he got. So this is a sweet story about a girl that becomes a maid in the governor's house, and the prince and the prince's servants and stuff end up coming, and she ends up falling in love with this one servant guy. I don't even know what he was, but he served the prince in some way. And the things that happen from there, there's a part of it you come to find out that I wasn't a super fan of, that doesn't really happen nowadays, but back then it was kind of common. This is like the 1800s, sometime in the 1800s. Wasn't a fan of it. It kind of gave me the icky feelings in regards to their love story. But it was common back then. So anyway, so it was like a 2-star for me. I liked that it was on Prince Edward Island, but the storyline and the love interest, the romance in it just wasn't there for me. Okay. Number 2 is one I actually just read this month, and I will go into more detail about it with my December wrap-up. We're heading into the end of December now, and it is The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson. This is a Nutcracker reimagining. It's supposed to be, and all I can say about this is I was hoping for Christmassy, whimsical feelings from this, and no, you don't really get that. This is more appropriate, I would feel like, to around Halloween. It's a darker type of fantasy. I finished it because I wanted to see what happened, but if it did not fit the Christmas light, wonderful time of year vibes that I was hoping for. So Kingdom of Sweets, number 2 out of my most disappointing books. And then number 1 is also a book my sweet husband got for me, and I feel bad. But if I had to pick number 1, I think I would pick this one. It is Danielle Steele's Fairy Tale, number 1 as my most disappointing reads. Not that I had super high hopes for it. It had been forever since I'd ever read a Danielle Steele book. This is like a reimagining of Cinderella, takes place in modern time, and it's like in Napa Valley, and the main character is like the heiress of this prosperous winery estate, and her father passes away. Well, her mother passes away, then her father remarries, passes away. It's Cinderella, pretty much, but in modern times. The main character, she was pretty dumb. A lot of this, I had to suspend my disbelief. She was very sweet, but dumb in that a lot of the things that happened in this, in regards to the stepmother and their stepbrothers in this one instead of sisters, if she had just called her lawyer, everything would have been fixed pretty much immediately. But she doesn't do any of that. And so a lot of stupid things happen because of that. The writing was pretty simplistic. Not that I need super highbrow writing to enjoy a story or anything like that. But it felt like overly simplistic. Again, it's been so long since I've read Danielle Steele, so I don't remember if her other books are like this too. If it feels like a book for those that maybe don't read as often, that are coming back to reading or want to read something that's just doesn't take a lot of effort type of thing, is kind of how I felt like her prose was. And then the love story in it was non-existent until like the very last few pages when they decide that they're in love with each other. And I'm like, what? What is this? I don't know. So if I have to pick my most disappointing, I think it would have to be this one. Again, this is just my own opinion with all of these. Doesn't mean that you can't like a book. We all have different types of tastes. But yeah, this gets the #1 spot. So that's it, you guys. Those are my most disappointing books of 2024. Next list is actually a positive list. It will be my favorite books of 2024, which I'm more excited to talk about because I don't like talking about negative things, honestly. I like to think positively and emit positivity to you all too. But I still feel like it's good to talk about just the ones that just doesn't hit the way that I thought they would. So there you go. So stay tuned for my favorites of 2024, and also stay tuned for, I have my 25 books of 2025 lists coming. I have my wrap up, of course. I have my, what's in the book bag, my January library haul will be coming at the beginning of January. So I hope your holidays were wonderful. And I hope you have a wonderful new year that is coming up in just a few days. Please like and subscribe. Until next time, take care. TTFN. Ta-ta for now.